The anime starts with a young boy who is ridiculed for his feeble magical abilities. A nobleman scornfully asserts that magic is beyond the reach of someone like him. To prove his point, the nobleman unleashes a formidable spell that incinerates the boy. Despite this, the boy is mesmerized by the splendor of the nobleman's magic, longing for another opportunity to master it. Miraculously, he finds himself revived in a chamber surrounded by maids, whom he mistakenly perceives as towering figures and reflexively attacks. In his panic, he conjures a fireball that blasts through the ceiling. The city is abuzz with celebrations for the birth of the seventh prince, Lloyd, while the maids are stunned by his unexpected display of power. 6 years on, the maids are still trying to locate Lloyd. They explore another area, and Lloyd eventually emerges from his hiding spot. He is noticed by 2 noblemen, whom he pleads with to keep his presence from the maids. They consent, inviting him to join them in a hunt, but Lloyd flees. One nobleman contemplates why his peer is eager to curry favor with Lloyd, considering his remote chance of ascension to the throne. He recalls, however, Lloyd's early fascination with magical texts and suspects that Lloyd might be the reincarnation of the legendary William Bordeaux, a foundational figure in magic. Lloyd overhears this and confirms to himself his reincarnated status, though in his past life he was merely a peasant. Lloyd goes to the library, intent on deepening his magical knowledge. As he picks up a book, his maid Silpha snatches it away, revealing his whereabouts. They start training together, and although Lloyd feels swordsmanship is unnecessary for him, Silpha insists on its importance given his royal status. She is adamant about dedicating her life to his education. Realizing that any resistance would only prolong the training into the evening, Lloyd decides to engage fully. During their training, Silpha notices Lloyd's increasing strength. Unbeknownst to her, Lloyd uses control magic to mimic her moves, effectively cheating. He also employs physical enhancement and levitation spells to compensate for her superior strength. As their sparring intensifies, he turns off the control spell to catch her off guard and attempts a final strike, but she blocks it, revealing she knew about his deception. She defeats him but praises his ability to simultaneously cast multiple spells, a skill challenging even for imperial mages. Lloyd is secretly relieved she hasn't discovered all his spells. Later, Lloyd learns of a forbidden library housing a demon named Grimoire, trapped within a book after nearly destroying an empire. Undeterred, he uses concealment magic to bypass the guards and enters the library. Breaking the potent seal with ease, he encounters Grimoire, who, acknowledging Lloyd's unique ability, seeks his help in breaking free. Grimoire offers gold as a reward, but Lloyd quickly discerns the gold's inferior magical quality, indicative of a mere illusion. Lloyd informs Grimoire that he will reveal him after completing his studies, emphasizing the importance of his research for the kingdom. Grimoire, feeling threatened, asserts his harmlessness to humans, yet Lloyd remains skeptical. Intrigued, however, when Grimoire mentions ancient spells forgotten by time, Lloyd's curiosity is piqued. He forges a magical key and lifts the seal, releasing Grimoire. Upon his release, Grimoire immediately launches a lethal spell, Arcus Obscura, demolishing the room. Lloyd, protected by a magical barrier, survives unharmed. Captivated by the ancient magic, Lloyd requests more demonstrations. Each subsequent spell from Grimoire is thwarted by Lloyd's persistent barrier. Realizing Lloyd's underestimation, Grimoire evolves a second head and simultaneously casts dual spells, a typically unattainable feat for a single caster. Nonetheless, Lloyd analyzes the magic undisturbed, noting that demons can manifest additional mouths for more complex spells. When Grimoire's potent spell falters, Lloyd is exhilarated by the learning opportunity. Desperate, Grimoire attempts to flee but finds himself confined within a new barrier. Lloyd explains their location beneath the castle, and the protective enchantments surrounding the library to prevent any magical outbursts. Testing Grimoire's defenses, Lloyd hurls a fireball, singing Grimoire severely. Lloyd wonders why Grimoire didn't defend himself. Afterward, Lloyd uses his magic to restore the library. Admiring Lloyd's formidable power, Grimoire acknowledges him as his master. Intrigued by the demon's resilience, Lloyd contemplates the limits of demonic endurance, instilling fear in Grimoire. The demon vows allegiance to Lloyd and becomes his familiar. Lloyd suggests a less menacing appearance for Grimoire, who transforms into a more endearing version of himself, but secretly plans retaliation when Lloyd lowers his guard. Lloyd instructs Grimoire to conceal himself within his garments. The demon, deeming Lloyd naive, contemplates controlling Lloyd's mind from such proximity. However, upon attempting, Grimoire realizes that Lloyd's dense mana shields him from manipulation. Acknowledging his current powerlessness, Grimoire resolves to comply temporarily and asks Lloyd to name him Grim, thus becoming Lloyd's familiar. Meanwhile, the second prince, Albert, prepares to visit Lloyd. Grim remains hidden as they proceed to the training field. Albert showcases his prowess in magic, targeting practice impressively. Lloyd, observing quietly, is invited by Albert to participate, offering Lloyd a rare opportunity to display his magic publicly. Opting for subtlety, Lloyd lightly grazes the targets, intentionally downplaying his abilities to avoid involvement in the royal succession conflict. The observing nobles, unimpressed, overlook Lloyd's precision. Albert, sensing something amiss, opts for a break, leaving Lloyd to contemplate alone. Lloyd, excited to have the shooting gallery to himself, decides to experiment with some new techniques he learned from Grimm, particularly the dual enchantment method. Grimm objects, claiming that such a technique is exclusive to demons, but Lloyd proceeds anyway, absorbing Grimm into his own body. Grimm, shocked and alarmed, questions who would dare merge with a demon. Undeterred, Lloyd successfully merges with Grimm, and the two begin to share the same body. This arrangement soon overwhelms Grimm, who panics and demands to know what Lloyd is up to. Lloyd explains he is attempting to stack spells to reduce enchantment times, ambitiously targeting 100 enchantments simultaneously. Grimm, shocked, points out that typically only 2 or 3 spells are stacked. Ignoring the warning, Lloyd uses Grimm's voice to cast 2 advanced spells at once, 1 water, 1 fire, despite their contradictory natures. Feeling the immense power, Lloyd opts to release the spell into the sky to prevent any damage. Elsewhere, Albert is having tea with ministers who are puzzled by his interest in Lloyd, dismissing him as just a child. Albert counters their views, asserting that they underestimate Lloyd's capabilities, sharing an anecdote of Lloyd's precision in hitting targets deliberately. Albert predicts that Lloyd will grow to be a significant asset to the kingdom as a great sage. The ministers commend Albert's foresight, but their conversation is interrupted by a sudden darkening of the sky. Back at the training field, the aftermath shows destruction, and Grimm realizes in horror that Lloyd has torn a hole in the sky. Lloyd, fascinated by the outcome, ponders over how to rectify this. Fortunately, the hole vanishes by itself eventually. The next day, Grimm reads a newspaper article about the mysterious sky event, but Lloyd is more intrigued by news of adventurers who conquered a high-rank dungeon, viewing it as a chance to obtain magical items. Despite Grimm's caution about the potential attention leaving the castle might draw, Lloyd is confident in his abilities and creates a perfect clone of himself using a pellet, impressing Grimm with the likeness, though skeptical about fooling Silpha. Lloyd assures him of a backup plan and sneaks out of the castle. While communicating with Grimm from afar, Lloyd learns that Grimm, posing as him, is struggling to convince Silpha. Lloyd marvels at his strategic placing of his consciousness in the clone, and leaving his body under Grimm's care. As Lloyd explores for a dungeon, he encounters a girl defeating orcs using a powerful breathing technique called Ki. When she notices Lloyd, he quickly disguises himself as Albert, introducing himself as Robert. The girl, Ta, a Class B adventurer, is instantly charmed by his appearance. After years of training, she decides Lloyd, whom she believes to be Robert, will be her boyfriend. Lloyd clarifies he's only searching for a dungeon, but Tay enthusiastically offers her assistance. They find a dungeon where Ta impresses with her strength, while Lloyd is more captivated by the shiny stones littering the dungeon. During a break, Lloyd inquires about Ki, eager to learn more about her techniques. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Grim, masquerading as Lloyd, manages his duties while dealing with Silpha. Back in the dungeon, as Tay continues dispatching monsters, they approach the treasure chest. Upon opening the chest, they are attacked by a lich.